Have you ever imagined that one day, while sitting on the judge's bench deciding the fate of unfortunate children, a young boy suddenly stands up, points at you, and cries out, "You are my mother"? That was the moment when Victoria Hale's life, a woman who thought she had buried her painful past, completely fell apart. Her story is not just a journey to find a long-lost child, but a fierce battle against a corrupt system that has turned innocent children into mere commodities. Follow this gripping tale of tears and hope, where a mother dares to defy every force to reclaim the light for her son and for justice. Newbridge City, located in the northern United States, is a vibrant metropolis with towering skyscrapers and dazzling neon lights. Beneath its glamorous facade lies a complex and sometimes murky legal system where family cases are often forgotten amid thousands of piled-up files. The Newbridge Family Court, an old building with Gothic architecture, handles cases related to child custody, domestic violence, and social welfare issues. Here, Judge Victoria Hale, known for her stern yet fair demeanor, has served for over 2 decades, becoming a symbol of justice in the city. Judge Victoria Hale, 52 years old, is a strong woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. She lives alone in a small apartment in the city center, devoting most of her time to her work and rarely sharing her personal life. Few know that she once endured a profound tragedy. In the past, she had to give up her newborn child under the pressure of family and career. Victoria has always kept this secret deeply buried in her heart, focusing on protecting children's rights in family cases. She believes that in doing so, she can atone for her past mistake. Liam, 9 years old, is a bright boy with peculiar behavior. He is frequently moved from one foster home to another because he struggles to adjust to new environments. Liam often draws pictures of a courtroom and a woman he calls Mom, although no one knows who his real mother is. The boy is brought to the Newbridge Family Court to consider moving him to another foster center. It is here that the fates of Liam and Judge Victoria Hale begin to intertwine. As Liam enters the courtroom, Judge Victoria feels a strange sense of familiarity, as if she has met the boy somewhere before. This feeling confuses her, but she quickly regains her composure and continues the hearing. Throughout the proceedings, Liam keeps staring at Victoria, and finally he stands up, points at her, and says, "You are my mom." The entire courtroom is stunned. Victoria is speechless. And from that moment, a series of unexpected events unfolds. The entire courtroom fell silent. Liam's words, "You are my mom," rang out like a bolt of lightning in a clear sky. Judge Victoria Hale, known for her composure and steely resolve, suddenly felt her hands trembling. She stared into the boy's dark brown eyes brimming with intelligence, eyes so familiar, like the ones she had seen in her dreams for the past 15 years. In that moment, memories long buried came flooding back. Victoria remembered that fateful day when she was a young, ambitious lawyer. She had run from the responsibility of motherhood, obeying the cold advice of her own mother and the family attorney to settle things properly. The child had been handed over to an intermediary, organization called Crown Adoption Services, which had promised to find him a loving home. Victoria had never dared to ask again. Every document had been wiped clean, as if the child had never existed. And yet, here he was standing before her, Liam with those eyes, that expression, as if accusing her of the secret she had buried. The courtroom descended into chaos. The child advocate leapt up demanding order. Court staff quickly guided Liam back to his seat, but his gaze remained locked on Victoria. She struggled to regain her professional composure, lifted her gavel, and struck it down to restore order. Order. The boy is confused. This may simply be a psychological reaction to past trauma, she declared firmly, though her voice quivered. Her longtime court assistant, a man named Marcus Reed, approached with a thick file. Judge Hale, this is Liam's record since he entered the welfare system. I've checked there's no indication he's your biological child. But Victoria knew these records could have been falsified. That night, Victoria returned to her small apartment. Weighed down by unease, she pulled out a worn, wooden box hidden in her desk drawer, the only place where she kept a photo of her newborn son, with a star-shaped birthmark on his left wrist. The edges of the photo were frayed from years of handling. The eyes in that photo were identical to Liam's. Her heart ached. She remembered Liam in the courtroom raising his hand to point at her, the star-shaped birthmark on his left wrist clearly visible. Victoria covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She had spent her life judging protecting children, and yet her own child had been lost to the world. The next morning, Victoria decided to hire a private investigator, David Knox, a former police detective who had helped her with difficult cases in the past. I need you to verify every detail of Liam's history, from the moment he left Crown Adoption Services until now. Every piece, every trace, she said. David looked at her in surprise. Victoria, you're talking about investigating this city's own administration. Are you sure you want to get involved in this? Victoria's eyes hardened. I don't care. I need the truth. If Liam is truly my son, I will do whatever it takes to bring him home. David fell silent, then nodded. I'll do everything I can. While David began his investigation, Victoria continued her work at the courthouse, but her mind kept drifting back to Liam's eyes. The boy had been transferred to Lakeside Child Development Center for psychological evaluation. Many nights, Victoria sat alone in her office, poring over Liam's file. She found suspicious signs. Multiple edits, guardian names changed repeatedly, and a birth certificate that looked forged. David called back after 3 days. Victoria Liam's records are a mess. Crown Adoption Services had its license revoked 5 years ago for violating adoption regulations. Most of the files have been destroyed. But one thing stands out. The initial hospital record notes a star-shaped birthmark on his left wrist, matching exactly with the birthmark on your son. Victoria felt her heart stop. For the first time in years, hope and anguish collided, tearing her apart. Could Liam really be the child she had lost 15 years ago, in the days that followed? Victoria Hale was no longer the cold, detached judge. In secret meetings with David Knox, she became anxious and worried. David, now a private investigator specializing in sensitive cases, held a worn file from Crown Adoption Services, and local Newbridge charities. Victoria. David said tensely. I dug through everything on Liam. I found a sealed medical report describing the star-shaped birthmark on his left wrist. This birthmark is rare, and it matches perfectly with the hospital documents from when you gave birth 15 years ago. Victoria sank into her chair, her hands trembling. It can't be. I believed all the records had been erased. Crown Adoption Services promised they'd find him a good home. David remained silent. He placed a faded photograph in front of her, a newborn with deep brown eyes and a star-shaped birthmark on his left wrist. Victoria covered her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. There's more, David continued, his voice low. I also found financial records from Crown Adoption Services. They received a huge sum of money from an anonymous source right after they took in your son. I suspect someone paid to erase the evidence. Someone very powerful. Victoria stared out the window, guilt and fear flooding her heart. My mother. She was the only one with enough money and influence to do this. I followed her advice, gave up my child to protect my career. Her voice broke. That night in her dark apartment, Victoria woke with a start when the phone rang. On the other end, a soft female voice whispered Mrs. Hale, "If you really want to know where your son is, come to the South Park in Newbridge at 3 a.m. But be careful, someone is watching you." Before Victoria could respond, the line went dead. She looked at the clock in panic. Less than 2 hours remained. She called David immediately. "David, someone knows. They told me to meet at the South Park at 3 a.m. David was thoughtful. "All right. I'll go with you. But Victoria, you have to understand, if we dig into this, we might be stirring up a hornet's nest. These people won't hesitate to kill, to keep their secrets." Victoria gripped the phone, her resolve firm. "I don't care. Even if I have to sacrifice everything, I will save Liam." The South Park in Newbridge at midnight was shrouded in darkness, lit only by a few flickering street lamps. Victoria and David sat in the car, watching every movement. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows and approached them. It was a middle-aged woman with short hair, wearing a black coat. Mrs. Hale. The woman whispered, "I'm Rachel. I used to be a nurse at Crown Adoption Services. I saw everything from forged documents to children whose names were changed so they could be sold to wealthy families. Liam. He was never legally adopted. He was pushed into the system like damaged goods." Victoria clutched David's hand, her heart pounding. "There's a man named Raymond Sterling, the mastermind behind everything at Crown. He has ties to many officials and judges in this city. He can fake anything, birth certificates, hospital records, court documents. If you want to save your son, you must expose him." Victoria felt her whole body freeze. Sterling, that name rang in her mind like a death knell. He also runs a private children's center outside Newbridge called Maple Creek Youth Center. That's where he keeps the unwanted kids, turning them into commodities for profit. Liam is one of them. If you don't act quickly, he could be moved elsewhere, or worse. David looked at Victoria, his expression grave. Victoria, if what Rachel says is true, then it's not just Liam. Dozens of other kids are being held by Sterling. We have to do something. Victoria bit her lip, tears streaming down her face. I already lost my son once. I won't lose him again. We will bring Liam home, no matter what. David nodded his eyes resolute. All right. I'll gather a trusted team to plan a raid on Maple Creek. But you understand, if we're caught, we could lose everything. Victoria nodded faintly, her resolve like steel. I don't care. I am his mother, and I will save my son. That night, the sky over Newbridge was darkened by heavy clouds. Wind gusted through the trees in the forest, howling like a warning. Victoria Hale stood in the shadows beside David Knox and his two teammates, Detective Maria Santos, a former SWAT officer, and Judge Harrison Pierce, Victoria's former colleague whose own daughter had gone missing in a similar case. Before them loomed Maple Creek Youth Center, a seemingly ordinary complex with red brick buildings and tall fences, a sign out front reading Youth Rehabilitation Center. But inside, according to Rachel, it was a living hell, a place where children were held renamed and prepared to be sold like merchandise. David checked his watch and whispered, "Everything's in place. We have just 20 minutes before the guards change shift." Maria held up a floor plan of the center. Liam is in Block C, the back basement. There's a steel door that leads to the rear yard. If all goes well, we can get him out in 10 minutes. Victoria took a deep breath, her heart pounding. She whispered almost like a prayer, "I'm coming, my son." David's team moved like shadows. They slipped past 2 guard posts at the main gate and circled to the back of the building through an old path. Maria used a fake keycard to unlock the side door, leading the team into a pitch-black hallway. The hum of an old air conditioner rattled overhead. Victoria smelled the staleness of disinfectant, mixed with dampness. They passed cold steel doors, each with a small glass window. Inside, children lay curled up on bunk beds, staring blankly into the darkness. Their eyes were vacant, as if their souls had long been drained away. Victoria's heart ached. "We can't let this continue," she whispered. David signaled for silence and pointed to the end of the hallway. Block C, they rushed to the final steel door, and inside, Victoria saw Liam huddled on an iron bed. The dim yellow light from a bare bulb shone down on his eyes, the same eyes she had never been able to forget for 15 years. "Liam," Victoria whispered, her hand trembling as she reached out. Liam looked up and instantly recognized her. "Mom." He ran to the bars, his small hands pounding the metal. "I knew you'd find me." His voice shook with emotion. Victoria pressed her hand to the bars, tears streaming down her face. "I'm here, now, my son. I'm going to get you out of here." David used bolt cutters to break the lock. The door swung open, and Victoria rushed in to embrace Liam. The cheap soap and disinfectant smell on his skin disappeared in her arms. Suddenly, an alarm blared. Red emergency lights flashed along the hallway. Footsteps thundered, radios crackled. Block C. Intruders lock. All exits. Victoria gripped Liam's hand. "We have to run." Maria and David urged her. But at that moment, a figure appeared at the end of the hall. Raymond Sterling, the mastermind of it all, wearing a sleek gray suit and a chilling smile. He raised his hand to stop them, his voice like a serpent's hiss. "Judge Hale, at last, you've come. I've waited a long time for this." Victoria narrowed her eyes, her heart clenching. "What have you done to my son?" Her voice cracked with anger. Sterling shrugged, calm and composed. "I've only done what's necessary to control this system and profit from children like Liam. You know, kids are the most lucrative commodity. Easy to move, hard to trace, and worth more than anything else in this world." Victoria shouted. "You're a monster! I won't let you harm Liam for another second." Sterling sneered, his voice dripping poison. "You think you're such a great mother? You were the one who signed the papers to give him up. You turned him into merchandise. I merely perfected the process." Victoria collapsed to her knees, tears streaming. David and Maria drew their guns. "Enough, Sterling. These children will go free, and you will pay for everything you've done." Sterling shrugged. "You can shoot me, but you can't stop this network. I have people everywhere, in the police, in the courts, even the FBI. Even if I fall today, someone else will take my place." Victoria stood clutching Liam's hand. "Maybe so, but you won't get another chance tonight." The alarm blared louder, the red lights flashing like a horror show. Sterling lunged for Liam, but David tackled him to the ground. Maria snapped the handcuffs on him. "You bastard! The game's over!" Sterling howled. "You'll all die. I'll destroy everything you love." His face twisted in rage. Victoria held Liam tightly, tears streaming. "No. I lost you once. I won't let anyone take you from me again." The alarm fell silent, replaced by the sound of police sirens and running feet. FBI agents, working with Maria's special team, arrived just in time. They secured the entire center, freeing the children held captive. Flashlights cut through the darkness, guiding the crying children out of their nightmare. David looked down at Sterling with disgust. "Raymond, Sterling, you're under arrest for child trafficking, fraud, kidnapping, and a laundry list of other charges. Everything you've done will come to light." Sterling spat. "You think catching me is enough? I've paid off judges, prosecutors, even men like Marcus. You can't stop this nightmare." Victoria met his eyes, a mother's fire burning within her. "No. The children you've hurt, the families you've broken, they will stand against you. Justice will be served." Sterling smirked, but the defiance was gone. "We'll meet again, Judge Hale." Maria shook her head. "No. You'll rot in a federal prison for the rest of your life." David gripped Victoria's hand. "We did it. We saved Liam and many others." Victoria held Liam close, her heart overflowing after all the years of guilt, pain, and hope. She knew this was just the beginning of a long battle against a powerful and shadowy network. But she also knew that when a mother finds her lost child, everything can start anew, with love, courage, and the light of justice. The next morning, pale sunlight broke through the gray clouds over Newbridge. Victoria sat in an FBI interrogation room, holding a file full of evidence from Maple Creek Youth Center, lists of trafficked children, forged birth certificates, tampered medical records. Beside her, Liam sat huddled, his hands still trembling, but his eyes glowed with hope. He looked at Victoria and softly asked, "Mom, do we have to leave here?" Victoria took his small hand in hers, squeezing it tightly. "No, my love. From now on, I'll never let anyone separate us again." Outside, David Knox and Detective Maria Santos were conferring with FBI agents. They had recovered the hard drive containing crucial data from Marcus's control room, including the full list of those involved in the child trafficking network. Maria flipped through the files, her eyes blazing with fury. "Victoria, do you know? At least 4 other judges. 3 police chiefs and 2 prosecutors were complicit. They've been helping Sterling for over a decade." Victoria was speechless. Her voice choked. "I can't believe it. So many children lost their families, their childhoods, all because of the greed of those who wore the mantle of justice." She clenched her fists. "We have to bring them all into the light." That afternoon, Victoria was escorted back to Newbridge Family Court for a special hearing. Liam was placed in the temporary care of Nurse Rachel, who had helped them the previous night. Victoria stepped into the courtroom, the same place where she had once presided proudly as a guardian of justice. Today, she stood at the witness stand as the accuser of those who had once been her peers. Facing the special investigative panel was Chief Judge Harold Whitmore, Victoria's former mentor, when she first started in the field. His hair was silver, his gaze stern, yet filled with profound sadness. "Victoria Hale, do you understand that what you're doing today could cost you everything? Your judgeship, your honor, even your freedom?" Victoria lifted her head high, her voice resolute. "I understand. But I would rather lose everything than close my eyes to the crimes that have destroyed so many families." Outside the courtroom, reporters jostled for the story. They called Victoria the judge who dared to expose injustice, the brave mother. But others said she had made herself a pariah for challenging a powerful network. As the evening light fell on Newbridge, Victoria and Liam were taken to a safe house arranged by the FBI. In the small but warm room, Victoria sat beside Liam, brushing his hair gently. "Tomorrow there's still so much to do," she said. "I have to testify, help the FBI complete the case, and help the other children find their families." Liam looked up, his eyes shining. "Mom, if I can't remember everything, will you be mad at me?" Victoria's voice trembled as she kissed his forehead. "No, my love. I just need you to know how much I love you, and I will always be here for you, no matter what happens." Outside the window, streetlights cast their glow, illuminating the mother and son in the darkness. David knocked on the door and smiled gently. "Victoria, the FBI, has officially charged Sterling and his accomplices. Tomorrow, he will face the federal court. This is just the beginning, but you've done what no one else in the system dared to do." Victoria nodded her eyes, shining with fierce determination. I lost my son once. This time, I will not let justice slip through my hands. The next morning, Sterling was led into the federal court in an orange prison jumpsuit. His eyes were cold, his face hardened. As he passed Victoria, he clenched his teeth. "I'll drag you down to hell with me." Victoria stood tall, her eyes unwavering. "You've already dragged too many people down, Sterling, but I will not be one of them." At the emergency hearing, the FBI presented the names of more than 200 trafficked children along with the identities of numerous officials who had aided Sterling. The courtroom fell silent. Maria Santos, seated beside Victoria, whispered, "Sterling has no way out, but you'll have to face charges for unauthorized investigation, trespassing, and possibly initial complicity." "Are you ready?" Victoria held Liam's hand tightly, her heart stronger than ever. "I'm ready. As long as I see justice truly served and these children go home, I'll accept any consequences." Maria placed a hand on her shoulder, admiration in her eyes. "Then, let's start from here." Victoria stepped out of the federal courtroom, the flashes of cameras blinding her. Reporters shouted questions. "Judge Hale, are you afraid of losing your judgeship? Do you regret what you've done? Were your actions even legal?" Victoria paused for a few seconds, clutching the file in her hands, her gaze resolute. She looked the crowd in the eye and declared, "I accept all consequences, as long as the truth is revealed. I believe justice is not only in the law books, but in the hearts of every human being. If what I did was outside the rules, but saved dozens of children, then I will accept any punishment, and I will keep fighting for them to the end." A wave of emotion, anger, and admiration rippled through the crowd. Some were moved to tears, while others raised banners, "Justice for the children, justice for Victoria." At the now sealed Maple Creek Youth Center, the FBI and Special Investigative Team organized family reunions. One by one, each child was called by name and led out of the damp, cold rooms, their eyes wide with confusion. Some burst into tears at the sight of their parents after years apart. Others remained silent, their eyes vacant, needing time to heal from unimaginable trauma. Liam held Victoria's hand tightly as he walked among the other children. He looked up at his mother, his eyes sparkling with hope. "Mom, will those other kids get to go home like me?" Victoria gently stroked his hair, her voice choked. "Yes, my love. They'll all be reunited with their families. And if they don't have parents, I promise you David Maria, and I will find them a real home." Liam smiled his first smile after all the terrible days. "Can I help them too? Mom, I want to be a lawyer like you when I grow up." Victoria smiled through her tears, her heart swelling with pride. "You'll be the best lawyer in the world, my son." That night, in a secure FBI office, Victoria sat with David Maria and FBI agent Lisa Chang. Lisa, who had lost a niece to human traffickers, laid a thick file on the table. We found solid evidence against Sterling and his accomplices. But Victoria, your name also appears in the records linked to Crown Adoption Services. You signed the relinquishment papers, and paid for the complete anonymity service. Victoria sighed, her face hardening. I know. It was the biggest mistake of my life. But I risked everything to make it right. I'm ready to stand trial for what I did. David took her hand, his eyes full of trust. Victoria Sterling forced you into this. You shouldn't bear the full weight of it alone. We'll help you prove that. Maria nodded firmly. Together, we saved Liam and dozens of other children. Now it's time to bring the whole truth into the light and make the real criminals pay. Lisa considered. I've contacted some senior prosecutors. They may consider leniency, maybe even offer you immunity in exchange for your testimony against Sterling and the others. Victoria looked at them, her eyes brimming with new hope. Thank you. I'm ready to face whatever comes. The next morning, Victoria returned to Maple Creek one last time, standing before the cold steel gates where so many innocent children had been imprisoned. The gates were now sealed, the center's name removed, replaced with an FBI warning sign, crime scene under investigation. Liam stood beside her, his eyes shining with strength. Mom, we won, didn't we? Victoria smiled, holding him close. Yes, my love. We won at least for today. But the fight for justice is far from over. There are so many more children who need to be saved. David and Maria stood behind them, eyes full of resolve. That's right, Victoria, David said. We won't stop here. We'll keep fighting so that what happened at Maple Creek can never happen anywhere else. Victoria turned to her team, gripping their hands. In that moment, she knew she was no longer alone. Beside her were people willing to sacrifice everything to protect innocent children. The morning sunlight lit her face, making her eyes sparkle. Victoria whispered to herself, justice will prevail, because a mother's love can break any chain. One crisp autumn morning, golden sunlight spilled down the steps of the Newbridge Federal Courthouse. Outside, reporters crowded camera flashes popping endlessly. The trial of Raymond Sterling and his accomplices officially began. It was considered the largest child trafficking case in the city's history. Victoria Hale entered the courtroom with Liam at her side. The boy wore a small gray suit, his hair neatly combed, his face resolute, like a grown man. She gripped his hand tightly, her eyes shining with determination. Today, she wasn't just fighting for her own child, but for hundreds of others who had been sold like merchandise. David Knox and Detective Maria Santos sat in the front row, their eyes following Victoria. FBI agent Lisa Chang was also present. They were the companions who had fought alongside her in this battle. The prosecutor presented the jury with undeniable evidence, a list of more than 200 trafficked children surveillance videos from Maple Creek Youth Center, and testimonies from victims' children who had been renamed stripped of their childhoods. Sterling sat on the defendant's bench, his head bowed, his face stripped of its former arrogance. Victoria was called to the witness stand. Her eyes no longer trembled. They were full of unwavering resolve. I once believed I was doing the right thing when I entrusted my son to Crown Adoption Services, thinking it was the best way to save my career. But I was wrong. They deceived me and sent Liam, my own flesh and blood, into a living hell. I can never forgive myself, but I also cannot forgive those who profited from the pain of hundreds of children. Today, I stand here to protect justice, not just for my son, but for every one of those children. The courtroom fell silent. A mother had given everything she had left in her heart to stand up against evil. Then it was Liam's turn to speak. He stood tall, his voice shaking but strong. My mom did everything to find me. Even though she once gave me up, she never stopped loving me. She saved me and all the other kids. I forgive her, and I'm proud to be her son. Victoria broke down in tears, wrapping her arms around him. The entire courtroom erupted in sobs. The jurors' eyes glistened with compassion. The jury returned after nearly 2 days of deliberation. The foreman stood, his voice firm. We find Raymond Sterling guilty of child trafficking, kidnapping, document forgery, and numerous other charges. The defendant is sentenced to life in prison without parole. Applause filled the courtroom, and many wept with joy. Sterling was led away, his cold eyes finally downcast in humiliation. Victoria looked up at the soaring ceiling of the courtroom, tears streaming down her cheeks. But this time, they were tears of release. 6 months later, Maple Creek Youth Center was transformed into the Victoria Hale Children's Support Center, a place that offered counseling, legal aid, and care for victims of trafficking and abandonment. Victoria no longer held her judgeship, but she became the center's legal advisor, continuing the fight for justice in a new way. On the morning of the center's opening, Liam stood beside his mother, holding a brand new backpack. He beamed. Mom, today I start school. I want to become a lawyer so I can help kids like you helped me. Victoria's heart swelled as she hugged him tightly. I'm so proud of you, Liam. I promise I'll always stand by your side, no matter what happens. David, Maria, and Lisa stood behind them, eyes filled with hope. They knew that while the journey ahead was long, the light had finally been lit. Victoria looked at Liam and at the other children playing in the courtyard, thinking justice doesn't end with a verdict. It begins with love and courage, and today we planted the first seeds. In that moment, Victoria knew her fight wasn't over. But at least she had found her child reclaimed justice and found herself once again.